Hey, what's going on, guys? I got a very special treat for you today. We're looking at probably one of the rarest Gundam models out there, the Jenice Custom. So some of you have probably never even seen this model. I don't know if I've ever actually seen one in person. So I just want to say a big thank you to James, who actually loaned this to me to build and review and share with you guys. So this is a part of Bandai's LM or limited model series that I believe there was only a few of, including this kit, the Leo, and also the Taurus from Gundam Wing as well. I think those are maybe some of the only Gundam models that were released in this line. So this kit's all the way back from 1996. It's going to be a 1/44 scale, as you can see. Very small, simple model kit here of the Jenice Custom from Gundam X. Should be very interesting. Let's go ahead and check it out here for today's video. So all right, let's check it out. Here on the front, we have a photo of the painted build with some kind of digital effect there in the background. You can see there's the X Gundam there with the moon and everything, so it all makes sense. It does also have markings on there, which again is not usually common for a production model here for the photography on the box art, but again, it was a different time. This is number 09 in the lineup. I think that's also including some other different non-Gundam stuff in the LM, the limited model line. I'm not exactly sure on that. Again, you guys can check me on that one. Right here is the list price for this one, 800 yen, so it's about $6-7 for to convert that nowadays at this current age. But anyway, here on the sides, you just have the titling there once again. Here it is sideways here on this side. On the back is where we have some more information. Close-up illustration there of the Jenice Custom face. Very Zaku-esque, right? Here it's like the Gundam X version of the Zaku. Right, so here on the back we have a couple of photos of the included accessories and the kit once it's all built and painted, and some screenshots from the anime over here. Now obviously it looks great here in the box art, there on the box art photography. That said, the kit, as I'm expecting, is going to be all molded in one color, with the exception of the polycaps looks like they're in gray. We'll take a look at the runners in just a moment. First of all, the instruction manual, really cool artwork here on the front of the instruction manual there, and once again some stills from the anime, but that's some awesome artwork. Here on the back side we have reference images showing the colors. I believe this is going to be the color guide. Yep, so there's our color guide, and it shows you where each of those colors are going to go around on the design. And on the inside here, just a simple fold out so you can tell just how quick the assembly is going to be. Very, very simple assembly here for this one. And there's our parts list and all that, so going to be pretty quick. And actually on that note, kind of looking over everything, I don't think that it says the scale anywhere, interestingly enough, on here, although I'm pretty certain it's supposed to be 1/44 scale. Here's a look at the decal sheet, which at first I was just assuming is sticker decals. Interestingly enough, though, this is actually water slide decals. So there's 3 little water slide decals that we have included with this, which is pretty awesome. We've also got our polycaps here in gray, PC10, which unfortunately includes the polycap hands. And then our 2 runners here in green. It'd be runner A1 and A2. So here's runner A1. And here is runner A2 there. One nice thing that I can see right off the bat is that the shoulder pieces are in one solid piece rather than being 2 pieces. I'm sure we'll have plenty of seam lines on here, but at least that's one part that we don't have to worry about having any seam lines on. And yeah, so as much as I think that it's 1/44 scale, it does look quite small. That said, I believe maybe it's just that this particular mobile suit is a little bit on the smaller side. It does say that it's 16 meters in height, which is a little bit smaller than average, so maybe that's what it comes down to. So all right, anyway, let me go ahead and get it put together and then we'll see. Okay, and wow, here's the kit all built up. A very, very interesting kit indeed. Not a good kit by any means, but certainly very interesting for a number of reasons. A couple of things about the parts that I didn't notice while it was on the runner, but we'll talk about that here in just a minute. But as you can see here, straight out of the box, not really going to be looking all that great, just because, I mean, it doesn't really have hardly any color separation at all. As you can see, we've got a number of pretty nasty seam lines on there, mixed with some very weak points of articulation, you might say, that are going to be causing some issues for this kit, but we weren't really expecting that much. I think there are still very, very interesting and cool points about the kit, so we'll definitely talk about the pros as well as the cons. Let's go ahead and get into it here with the accessories first. And the accessories are going to be very simple, as we just have the axe and machine gun here, which are both also just molded all in green there, obviously. That said, the detail on them is pretty nice. So once you have like the flash cleaned up, you can see just like the flash or the mold line going around there. So it's going to take some sanding just to get everything, just looking nice first, and then obviously some painting over here On this side of the axe, you have those circles from the ejector pins there, unfortunately, so those are probably going to take some putty in there as well, just to get everything smoothed out. But again, you do have some nice detail there, so once everything's all cleaned up and then painted up in detail, it is going to look pretty nice. The same thing, especially here with the machine gun, as I think the mold on this one does look really nice, and there is something even more interesting about this other than just the general mold and details. But again, you can see those ejector pin circles there. Going to be quite the issue, but some really nice details around here on this. I would also go ahead and drill a hole there for the actual gun barrel as well. But the really interesting thing about this that I noticed while cutting off the runner is that this is one solid piece, and this is like very thick plastic. If you guys remember recently with the HG Votoms kits, Bandai kind of made a big deal about some of those parts being like very thick molded parts, especially like the ammo pack for the rifle for the Scope Dog kit. Interestingly, like all of the parts for this kit were molded in a way that the plastic is very, very thick. Here on the shoulder armor, for example, I noted how it's nice that it's one solid piece so you don't have a seam line there. This one is not quite as thick as some other pieces, but let me go ahead and just pop off one of the legs here for an example to show you guys. So this lower leg section here is just two pieces sandwiched together so you don't have any articulation at the ankle joint there. And underneath the feet and everything, you're just going to have this big seam line going all the way around that part, which shouldn't be too bad, to be honest. You're probably going to need some putty for that as well, because as you can see in some areas, it's not like a super tight fit there. So probably going to take some glue, some putty to get rid of that, but ultimately not the worst seam line I've seen. Popping this apart, you can see just how thick that is on the inside of those parts. You can tell that like that's probably about 3 millimeters thick, something like that, I would say, which is, it doesn't sound like a lot, but that's very thick compared to like what we're used to now. And so there's a number of issues with that. Number one, it makes the parts very heavy. The other issue that you're going to have, and you don't really notice it so much on these leg parts, fortunately, but in other areas of the kit. And again, fortunately, it's in mostly areas that aren't going to show too much, but here's a perfect example here on the back, which is ultimately going to be covered by the backpack, so it doesn't matter. But you can see that big dip in the plastic there. That's a huge sink in the plastic just because this is just a huge chunk of plastic. And being that thick, once the plastic, after, it's hot when it goes into the mold, then once it starts to cool down, it's going to shrink a little bit, and that shrinkage is what causes the dip or the sink in the plastic there. Fortunately, throughout most of the kit, you're not really going to notice too much of that. It's not really going to be too apparent. Again, probably when you're in the process of, removing the mold lines and seam lines, and as you can see, the shoulder armor doesn't like to stay on very well. But in your cleanup process, you're probably going to find some more sinks that you'll have to maybe fill in with some putty if they're real bad. But it's just kind of interesting how thick some of these parts are. So like this upper arm part is just one big solid piece. The thigh part as well. Let me show this to you guys, just kind of disassemble the kit here. But this whole thigh and knee joint piece is one big solid piece. So I mean, just look at that. That's like pretty much like a full centimeter thickness this way, and even more so this way. And then it's just like a ball and socket joint just right into that part right there, and that just slides up into our torso, which has a polycap in there. Otherwise, the entire waist and torso section is all just two pieces put together there as well. And if you're thinking like, okay, so it's basically like an old 80s kit, well, it's not really like that either, because even on the old 80s kits from the original Gundam series, Zeta, Double Zeta, those kits are molded in a way that they're pretty fixed pose. I mean, they have articulation, but it's sort of like this, right, where they have like very, very limited articulation, but the thickness of the plastic is something that's definitely different from even those older kits. They're not molded in a way that the plastic is so thick anyway, so it's certainly very unique. But some other difficult seams are obviously going to include the one here on the head. The head is just two pieces put together there, and then like the mustache is a separate piece. It does say in the instruction manual that if you want to make the standard type and not the custom type, you can just cut off the antenna, and then you'll just have to, just sand that down a bit to make just the standard type if you wanted to. Here on the shoulder, the arms are connected via like a ball joint there, but you're gonna have very minimal articulation. At the elbow joint there, you can see we have that polycap joint at the elbow, which is going to give you about 90 degrees. The hands also being in polycaps is also polycap material, I should say. It's also not ideal. So you may want to swap those out with some different hands. But if you're wondering about the size, like I said, it definitely feels a bit on the small size, being a 16-meter tall mobile suit. But if we stand it here next to the Strike Gundam, this is the 1/44 scale entry grade, and you can see it looks to be probably about in scale. I'm not sure what exactly the Strike's height is in canon. I think probably about 18 meters, I would guess. So it's maybe on the Jenice, I should say, is maybe a little bit on the short side. Even at 16 meters, it should be smaller than the strike. It does seem to be maybe even slightly smaller than it should be, but man, this leg does not want to stay in that joint now. It's kind of like very floppy up in that ball joint there at the hip. But anyway, the weapons just fit into the polycap hands, down into there like that, and we're gonna be pretty limited, I think, in terms of our posability with this, but let's see. And so yeah, as you'll see here just from the last couple of poses to wrap up this review, it can't really do too much, and so this is again a very interesting model. Certainly not one that's for everyone, with it being one that's definitely going to require a lot of work, but then again, it's not a kit that's pretty widely available for anyone anyway. If you really want this kit, then you gotta really want this kit, because it's pretty rare, and so you gotta have an idea of what you're getting yourself into if you're gonna go through the trouble of tracking one down and then paying however much it's gonna cost you to actually get one. And for as much work as it's gonna be, I mean, I think it's gonna come out pretty cool. I mean, obviously you could modify the joints to add some more articulation, basically just like cut up the entire kit and then just add a bunch of joints in everywhere to make it kind of a little bit nicer looking, a little bit nicer articulation, everything. And you're basically, if you were to just completely scratch build a Jenice out of nothing, this kit basically gets you about like halfway there. So saves you a lot of time if you were just to want to just scratch build one or like kit bash one and have to do a bunch of heavy modification. All the main shapes are there for you. You basically just kind of have to cut it up and modify everything together in a way that just kind of makes it a bit nicer looking. But ultimately, I mean, even if you weren't to do that, just some nice cleanup work on it, removing the mold lines, seam lines, all the ejector pin markings in the weapons and stuff like that, cleaning it all up, doing a nice paint job on it, and I think it's going to come out looking pretty good. I mean, the general mold of it is pretty nice. You have some nice details around in some of the sections, so obviously you're going to be limited in terms of like an actual pose that you could put it in, but if you've ever worked on any of like the old 80s kits, or you enjoy working on those type of kits that are basically just kind of fixed pose and kind of, you know, derpy, quote unquote, in their stance, then this shouldn't really be too big an issue for you. But that's it for the review, guys. Hopefully you really enjoyed taking a look back at such a pretty uncommon kit. I don't know if this kit has really gotten too much of attention here on YouTube. Probably not, I would imagine. But yeah, it was very interesting for me. So thank you guys for checking out the video. If you want to check out some more Gunpla, obviously not this kit included, but other Gunpla, you can check the link in the video description to us at Gundam Store. We've got all sorts of cool stuff there for you guys, paints, tools, and supplies as well. So check that out. And yeah, leave a comment. Let me know what you guys think about this kit. Leave a like if you feel so inclined, and also make sure that you're subscribed if you're not. Really appreciate all your guys' support. Thank you so much. Till next time, guys, have a great day. I'll see ya.